Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, let's just get into it. We'll talk about last night's Sky card. Eubank Jr. beating Liam Williams. Obviously, I've talked about it a bit already. Another video, I think. Well, I don't think I do have another video lined up on what I think is going to happen with Eubank Jr. moving forward. Just what I think is going to happen this year, more specifically. But let's have a chat real quick about his performance again. Upon further reflection, you can kind of say, like, early on, you saw that Eubank, his speed, his timing. Some people were saying they weren't happy with his defense. They said his defense didn't look the best. I thought his defense looked fine. He was moving with shots quite well. He was rolling out of the way of shots. Whenever he was taking a couple of shots, he was doing good to kind of soften the blow. So I thought his defense was fine. I do think that he's done that a few times where he, late on in the fight when he really slowed it down. He didn't really do much. He just kind of resorted to just moving around the ring and just trying to goad Liam Williams. And when Liam Williams wouldn't bite, it was just kind of the two guys standing there almost, which was bizarre. But he's done that in a few fights. He done it against Marcus Morrison in a fight that I think he could have got Morrison out of there if he'd stepped on it. Because there was moments in the Morrison fight where he would back him up against the ropes and he would let combinations go. And then it was almost like a switch would go off in Eubank's head where it's like, no, box. And I was thinking, no, I remember watching that fight and thinking, no, you could put it on him. You could put it on him and get him out of there. And I wonder if he looked a lot better in this fight than he did in this previous. This was one of the best, certainly early on, he looked. And I just do wonder, is he focusing so much on his boxing that he's forgetting when he's got a dead man in front of him? Because I genuinely think that if he did step on the gas, Avni Yildirim style, he would have got Liam Williams out of there. I really do. As for Liam Williams, I just wonder. I mean, people have been saying that Demetrius Andre fight finished him. Yeah, he was soundly beaten by Demetrius Andre, yes, but I wouldn't say it was he had a success in there, and I wouldn't say it was a tremendous beating, nothing like that. I do wonder, did he have some kind of pre-existing injury, specifically maybe a neurological injury? Did he maybe take a couple of good shots in sparring and maybe hadn't fully recovered from it going into this fight? Because it was the blinking I couldn't really get over. When you see a fighter blink profusely like that, especially after the first knockdown, again, they were well-timed shots by Eubank, take nothing away from him, but it's very rare you see a fighter go down from a jab like that, and especially if it's a fighter who's not known for having a particularly powerful jab. I think I said in my live stream, if Liam Williams was in there with Triple G and he walked into a counter jab from Triple G to put him down, I'd be like, well, yeah, Triple G's jab is on point, it's heavy, it's hard, it's ramrod. But Eubank, it's a case of, I know it was timed well and he really got, a good bit of, reach into it, we got a good extension in it, but it was just like, really? And there was the blinking I couldn't understand. I was like, is there something, did he hurt himself prior to this fight for whatever reason? Maybe fearful of it getting pushed back again or whatever. Did he just go into it maybe not fully there in terms of, neurologically? Potentially could be. I would imagine they probably wouldn't. See, they do scan them, I think going into the fight, but you never know. Maybe something didn't show up, or who knows? Who really knows? But it was a good performance in that aspect from Eubank Jr. Conor Benn stated that, where was it? Was it that he'd be up for fighting Eubank Jr. at a catchweight or something like that? Yeah, said he'd be tonight by calling them out. Yeah, he could do it at a catchweight. Conor Benn is not going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. Alright, he's not going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. I don't know why. The fight I'd like to see for Conor Benn would be Avanesian. And to be fair, I reckon Conor Benn, if it was up to him, he would take that fight. I think that behind the scenes, there's a lot of things going on. They're trying to get as much money out of Conor Benn without taking serious risks, by putting him in there with someone like an Avanesian or a Mean Machine. But that's what Conor Benn stated about this. Now, here's the interesting part, and I want to talk about this a little bit more in depth in a separate video. But Billy Joe Saunders did, he posted a few, he was vocal after this fight, And where was it? Ben Shalom basically stated that Billy Joe Saunders, he spoke to him recently and he expects him to fight again. Potentially we could be seeing a rematch. Now, I have a video planned on what I think is going to happen with Eubank Jr. next. And I don't want to go in too depth into it here because I'd essentially be repeating myself basically with what I think is going to happen with regard to Eubank Jr. moving forward. So I'm going to reserve what I'm going to say for a separate one. It's probably going to go later on today. But the Billy Joe Saunders fight makes sense. It does make sense from a financial perspective. If we're talking about world titles, we'll have to watch the space with that. But from a financial perspective, and Sky, I'm sure would love that fight because it's such a big fight, and it would still generate fan interest. Both guys would be selling it. I mean, both guys are loud, abrasive. Billy Joe, he could just say, "Well, I'm the guy who took your O originally, and I only lost to Canelo." The build up to that fight would be funny. It would. And I think Billy Joe even put a clown face on Eubank Jr. and says, "Light work, remember me." So the build up to that fight that's going to be fun. But we'll wait and see. In terms of some of the other fights that happened last night, I want to talk about that. There's one fight that was on the undercard that I want to talk about, was that guy, Steve Robinson. People were asking me, I think he fought on Eubank Jr.'s last undercard against that, was it German guy he fought? And people were asking about him and I didn't know who it was. And then it kind of struck me, the heavyweight, the guy who didn't look particularly good but got a knockout. I was like, yeah, that guy. He was in there against the guy whose record was 0-1, white collar boxer. And boy, did both guys perform poorly. But that Steve Robinson guy, who was in much better shape than his opponent, he really looked poor. He really, really, really looked poor. I don't know why Boxer signed him, to be honest with you, because you could just see instantly this guy is and I don't think he's that young. I think he's in his 30s, but it's this guy needs a lot of work. A lot of work. Also on the undercard I want to talk about as well was Otto Wallin. Now I only saw clips of his fight against Kamil Sakalovsky, but it didn't surprise me that Otto Wallin looked a bit kind of lackluster in this fight. The simple reason for that is he took it on short notice. He was 13 pounds heavier than he was about this time last year when he fought Brazil. And that, none of that surprised me. When I saw the weigh-in, I saw that, I thought, I was thinking to myself, don't be surprised if Wallin makes hard work of this. Because Sakalovsky is one of them journeymen who is better than his record suggests. He comes to fights. One would wonder, now I'm not saying Sakalovsky would have been a world beater, no. But one would wonder if he'd have had a bit of stability turning pro. Let's say he had someone like MTK behind him when he had originally turned pro and he could train properly, take the right fights at the right time and be managed properly, where he could have gone in his career. Now I'm not saying Sakalovsky we'd be talking about him with the likes of Joseph Parker or guys like that, no. But he definitely could have done something. Definitely. Because he definitely got ability there. And him against Wallin, I thought he was a bit unfortunate to get more rounds. They gave him one round and a share of a round. He won about 2 or 3 rounds in that fight. If you're going by the highlights, you could say he won a couple more rounds because it looked like he was doing a little bit of work from what I saw in there. As I said, Wallin, he probably didn't do his stock any favours with regards to that, but saying that, it might make him a bit more, maybe people will be more demand to fight and thinking, he looks, he's not as good as we thought he is. I'm sure if he's sufficiently prepared for a fight, we'll see a much better Otto Wallin, much better. There's talk of him potentially fighting Hughie Fury. Now that would be interesting, be very interesting actually. Obviously not long removed from when he fought his cousin Tyson, it'll be 3 years now in September. But that would be an interesting fight. Otto Wallin, I reckon it probably mightn't be the most entertaining fight in the world, but it'd be interesting nonetheless. Obviously, Jesse Bam Rodriguez beat Carlos Cuadras last night. I saw clips of it. He's only 22 years old. Is that so he's WBC champion at flyweight. But is that that's kind of the regular title, because Estrada is the franchise champion. It really is a load of BS, that whole WBC franchise thing, because it's and here's the thing, right? At 135 pounds when Teofimo Lopez was champion and he had the franchise, he wasn't undisputed. right? That's what the WBC said. But then But then when George Kambosos wins it, he is undisputed, and now he's not again. And it just like, stop with the franchise. It just makes things so confusing. It's unnecessary. I don't think there's any point for it. But with the WBC, they will do as they do. Keith Thurman, first fight in over 30 months last night against Mario Barros. He did everything but stop him. Smashed Mario Barros' face up pretty badly. I mean, like, I don't be too harsh, because he was out of the ring a while. He did appear to have a little bit left, yes, but I just don't think Keith Thurman. I reckon the plan for Thurman will be, if they can get him in with Crawford and maybe do that not long after the Ugas Spence fight, I reckon that might be the plan. So kind of almost like a tournament style format if Crawford decides to go with PBC, which I think we probably do expect him to. It just seems to be the most likely sense. He wants to fight Errol Spence. He wants to fight Errol Spence, so I would imagine that'll probably be the case. Let's have a look at some of these other guys. Ryan Garcia make his return to the ring in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome against Emmanuel Taguillo. Now, he was reported. He was talking about Isaac Cruz there not so long ago, so that's kind of changed pretty quickly. This is an interesting one. It's not really boxing related, but it's just an interesting one. Usyk was playing football for Ukrainian 2nd Division FC Palace in a friendly. I see Usyk playing football coming off the bench. I just thought that was funny. Just to see him in football clothes, like just football gear, I should say. I know it's not really anything to do with boxing, but I just thought it was funny just to see that. Like, but here's an interesting one now. The Jamel Charlo, I should say, Brian Castano undisputed fight, which is a rematch of their fight last year. It was a good fight. Happening on March the 19th in LA. Now, when that fight was being talked about originally, and I think when it was announced originally, it was going to be in Texas again. Now, it was in Texas last year because Texas was more open than that. But well, apart from Florida and South Dakota, Texas was, I think it might have been, well, it was pretty much on par with the three of them. They were all open last year when that fight happened. Now, I understand why it was there. They were talking about having that fight in Texas again, which to me didn't make any sense because it's Charlo's home turf, and you'd ideally want it on neutral grounds, and you can have it in more states now, so there's no reason. So I'm glad that it's going to be in a more neutral location. Castano should win the fight. I thought he won the first one, but Charlo was always dangerous. Interestingly enough, and again, we've still not heard a peep from Dillian Whyte. Isn't that strange? I wonder this week will we get the announcement for Fury Whyte, and I wonder will we get the announcement for... There's an interesting one about Anthony Joshua as well. I seen earlier. I'll talk about it straight after this. But it's now actually being stated that Wembley Stadium has now overtaken the Principality in Cardiff. Either or, to be honest with you, where is Wembley? I know where Wembley Stadium is, but like, how far outside London City is it? The Principality wouldn't have... Because I look, if I could get tickets or if I could get media credentials, I'd go to that. How far outside? There is Wembley Park, isn't it? Like the Wembley Arena. Is that near the West End of London, or is it even in London? Is it in a different? Is it? I don't know. But I know it's probably in. No, it's definitely in London. But I know, is it kind of more west or is it more north? Is it near Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? I don't know. But anyway, they're talking about Wembley being the next venue, so that or the Principality. Either or, to be honest with you. It makes no sense to do this fight anywhere else other than in the UK. Like, literally, it makes no sense. I'd be amazed if they announced this fight this week and they say it's going to be in the MGM Grand. Like, why? And like, that makes no sense. Just, I'd say they'll do this probably in either or, one of them stadiums. It's not going to be in Old Trafford. I reckon the dates they're looking at, probably timing wise with regards the United, it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't work. I seen a post from Eagles Klimas. I'm probably saying that name wrong. Usyk's manager, where he was saying that the Joshua fight may potentially be pushed back to June. Now, it didn't really specify whether he's looking to protest that, But the reason being is wanting to give Joshua more time to get ready with his new trainer, who again is yet to be announced. We wait for that patiently. Video waiting. I'm literally waiting for to make that thumbnail and be like, right, now we're going to talk about this. But yeah, it makes sense, of course, if you do it in June, which is, we're in February now, so more time to get ready with your new coach. We're in February, next month's March, then we're in April. No time whatsoever to really get acclimatized with a new coach or anything like that. It makes perfect sense. And if you're Team Usyk, you're obviously looking to do this in April because it benefits you. It's less time removed from the first fight. You've less time with AJ and his new trainer. It makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Now this one right here is interesting. DAZN's purported bid to buy BT Sport is now off, with DAZN's chairman Kevin Meyer saying the deal became uneconomical for DAZN. BT Sport have confirmed they are in talks with Discovery regarding a 50-50 joint venture that will bring BT Sport together with Eurosport UK. Eurosport UK, they show very obscure kind of sports. Like, they'd be the kind of guys who were showing the under-17s World Cup, you know, that sort of way. They used to show Queensberry League. I don't know if they still do, but Queensberry League is like unlicensed fights. I think Anthony Yard had a few in that league, actually. Steve Holsworth was a commentator. Great guy. Funny as hell he is. But, yeah, we were hearing about that. So, DAZN, that would have been good for DAZN, because they would have acquired the rights to several key sports. I think BT do rugby. They definitely do football. Definitely do that. Premier League and Champions League. I think they do division football as well. And they would have got several other sports. So would have been a big thing for DAZN to have that. I was watching Hatman's video on that, and he was excuse me, he was saying that DAZN, one of the things he talked about DAZN was that they're looking to get a big platform marquee sport, like we'll say football or F1 or something like that, and maybe focus on that. Now Eddie Hearn is, I think he's chairman of the PDC now, but they still have a deal with Sky in place for the next couple of years. So if they could have got darts, now darts is a bigger sport, probably is a bigger sport than boxing. In fact, I'd say it probably definitely is, but it's not quite up there with football, but it's still a big spectator sport. Darts do great numbers on TV and in the arenas. I'm wondering if Eddie Hearn is regretting having such a long-term deal with Sky, or maybe it was Barry who originally signed that deal. So that would be interesting if they could get the darts, but that's a good few years away. I think the PDC do show darts on the DAZN US, because sometimes when I stream darts, it does give me the option. Now it's still the same commentary, but it does say, do you want it on ITV or do you want it on the DAZN? The same commentary nonetheless, but a frog in my throat now after that. So it's all raspy. Now here's an interesting one. Errol Spence versus Usyk, the unification fight. Tentatively talking, tentatively scheduled as well for April in Texas, A&T Stadium. To me, it's going to be very interesting to see how Errol Spence looks, because he's been out of the ring again a while. He's had a bit of inactivity, what regards the eye injury that he's sustained going into the Pacquiao fight, which never happened. And I don't know, it's an interesting one. Spence, to me, I don't know, it's a strange one. That car crash, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If he's not got residual damage from that, I'd be amazed. Such a violent crash. And I do wonder, has maybe... Spence is a great fighter, don't get me wrong, and he's done good things. He may still yet become undisputed, you never know. But a part of me thinks that Spence, has he lost something from that crash? Will it take something away from him? We'll be talking about Spence saying he was a great fighter, but had he not had that crash, it could have been this. Saying that, even prior to the crash, Spence was not doing the right things in terms of his career with regards outside the ring. He was turning up press conferences drunk. He was gaining a lot of weight, and the reason why it upset you a bit seeing Spence do that is because he came up as a real blue collar fighter. You know, he didn't strike you as someone who would go down that road of, you know, getting drunk at press conferences, blowing up in between fights. He struck you as a consummate professional. Because to be honest, Spence is very, very talented, but it's not like he's got crazy athleticism or he's a tremendous puncher. I mean, Jaron Ennis has better athleticism than Errol Spence. Might even be a bigger puncher too. Seriously, I'm not saying that does not me say he's a better fighter, but from an athletic point of view, he seems to have much better. I mean, Jaron Ennis is just athletically, good lord. I mean, when's the last time you seen and I mean, like, seriously, Jesus Christ, his athleticism is scary. You know, Jaron Ennis, you know, he really is a fantastic fighter. But that's not me saying he's better than Errol Spence ever was. No, I'm not saying that. But Spence was someone who he did everything right without doing anything necessarily spectacular. And someone like that, you know, they hone their craft. You know, like that's what Bernard Hopkins comes to mind as someone who he didn't have world-class athleticism, elite punching power, anything like that, speed, you know, timing. Everything he did, he worked on meticulously in the gym. And he was able to have longevity. He did change up his style later on. He would kind of fight when he needed to in the fights, of course. And he could be a bit reckless at times, you know, with the rules, especially late on in his career, very late on. But nevertheless, he still had the longevity because he was a consummate professional. I mean, Bernard Hopkins, even at 50, was in better shape than most guys in their 30s. You know, and even now he's still quite in good shape, but he's retired, 5-6 years now? So, you know, we'll watch the space with Errol Spence, we will, but I hope that he's still got enough in the tank, because there's such a good fighter there, Errol Spence, such a good fighter. Obviously this week, I'll talk about it more, probably in midweek report on Wednesday, but obviously we have some fights coming up with regards Danny Jacobs, and that just seemed to come so quick, didn't it? Like, but between that time that fight was announced and now we're in fight week, that just seemed to fly in. But with Danny Jacobs versus John Ryder, it's going to be interesting. I see on the undercard we have Ellie Scottney. She'll be fun to watch. Ellie Scottney's a good little fighter, very good little fighter. Good things to happen with her this year, I suspect. And Johnny Fisher is on that card as well. I always miss his name. His name just always seems to escape me. I know the Romford Bull, and then when I hear that, I'm just like, what the hell is his name? And I'm normally good with names, in terms of remembering them, not saying them, obviously, before someone says it. But yeah, he'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to see how he goes, how his career progresses. But people, I will leave it there. I don't think this has been the longest review of the week I've done, but I didn't want it to be. I'm still not exactly 100% from the last few days. I should be fine in the next day or so. So for now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you did. Happy Monday. Hope it's gone well. Peace.